Thanks a lot for all the introductions. I just realized that my panelists have altogether around 90 years of experience, and adding 15 of mine, we are 100 plus. So I think we'll try to do justice to the topic. Exactly. So the topic given to us, and thanks for introducing the panelists, work one task less. So I think we all know, and nobody will disagree, that teacher is the most fundamental and very important part in the whole teaching learning process. The 15, 16 years that a typical boy or a girl spends in a formal education system, his or her main interaction and learning is through a teacher. In this session, we'll try to explore what are the typical gaps that we found in teachers today, and how can we address that? What are the new training approaches? That's one. We can also touch upon what are the new learning approaches maybe. I also request my panelists to touch upon what kind of gaps do they see in the new breed of teachers that are coming. Are the new phenomena like teacher eligibility tests are helping? What kind of produce the B.Ed colleges are giving you? What kind of approaches do you use to interview and select them? So basically the whole pre-service part. And also students' learning needs are changing, I guess, right? Because they live in a very different world when we went to school. So that's one topic. Because what was like good to have or extracurricular is being demanded in the mainstream now. So that's one. I think one thing is that technology has become, it's not like good to have, it's now the part of life, right? So should it be also the part of the teaching learning process, or some people say technology is too much stimulus, so maybe we can touch upon that. And also something on the inclusion part, because of laws like RT, 25% reservation, now inclusion is, in a way, if I can use the word, forced. So how are teachers are coping up with that? So how we'll take up this, we will, starting from ma'am with you, Shrikara ma'am. You start with maybe a 4 or 5 minutes opening remark in what all topics I've jotted down, or maybe anything else that you want to bring into the table. And then we'll start the conversation with ma'am.
Am I audible? Yeah. I think as teachers, and coming to the fag end of this program, we all love to listen to stories and tell stories. I'll start with Rumpelstiltskin, which does the rounds in the teachers' circles, that when he came out into the town after a long period of sleep, he saw that everything had changed. Parks, IT parks had come up, new buildings had come up, but one thing that hadn't changed was his school. The school remained the same after years, but today that scenario is changing. Schools are changing, but still we find that we haven't reached where we should be. Students and technology is still far ahead of us. Not because, this is what I feel, and a few points to ponder. I'm not saying what is right and what is wrong. I feel as teachers and educators, we are very innovative and creative, but here I would like to talk about teacher training and the gaps that still remain to be filled. When I talk about teacher training, I'm sure everybody will agree with me that the most challenging thing for a principal is to get good teachers. Excellent trained teachers. And if you get them, how to retain them. Right? So, what I feel is, there are some teacher training programs we could look into. We always look around us. Like if I could tell you, if the current goes, what do we do the first thing? We look out if our neighbor is having current, is it not? So why not, when it comes to education, look around what people are doing. In countries like, we can take what we want, what is good. So what I found is, countries like Finland, Sweden, Singapore, they spend a lot of time and energy on teacher training. We do more in-service training. They do a lot of pre-service training. They, I believe, have 2 years of rigorous training after an eligibility test where the teacher has to have her basic qualifications like languages and mathematics plus specific qualification like specialization. It's after that there's this eligibility test, and then there's a 2-year rigorous training where the candidate or the student first observes classes and there is a mentor. After observing class, they become co-teachers, and after that part is over successfully, they teach under the guidance of a mentor, and after this whole process is over, they will become full-fledged teachers. I think we should also adopt that, because most of the time what we find, maybe not in metropolitan cities, but in suburbs and rural areas, we find that most people are unaware of what a teacher should be. I have time on my hands, my children going to school, why not go to the nearest school and teach? And since schools lack teachers, anybody with proficiency in English sometimes has to be taken in. That is there, we cannot brush it under the carpet. But what I would like to say is, 3 things we should look into as regards teacher training. One, which has been adopted by other countries, PBL, it's called problem-based learning. Now what is problem-based learning? To put it very simply, tell me if okay, problem-based learning is something very similar to what Vishnu Sharma did when long ago when he got the Panchatantra in place. He had children whom he couldn't, everybody said we cannot teach them. And he created stories with animals and he taught them. That's how the Panchatantra came into being, I believe. So PLB is something similar to that, where teachers get together, form a team, you can call it a PAR team. They form a team, they discuss problems, not personal problems, professional problems they face in the class. Not about a particular child misbehaving or anything. Why is it that this particular child does well in English and doesn't do well in maths? What is the problem? What is the background? Is there any problem at home which gets carried on to the school? If they discuss this and they come to a consensus, I'm sure we'll be able to solve most of the problems. The next one is videography. Videography has also gained a lot of importance, where a teacher, with the help of a mentor or without the help of a mentor, can record her classes. And I've seen this happening. A teacher recorded her own class, videographed rather, and then she sat alone with a mentor and observed her class. That's when she sees it as a student, and she found that there was a very important link missing in her class, which you realize and then you improve. That is one. The third one I wish to talk about is peer assessment, which personally I feel seems to have drawn a lot of flack. Because when your peers assess you, a lot of personal views come into, which I don't think everybody appreciates. Shall I talk about quality gaps now or next?
Thanks, Shrikala. Now I invite Mrs. Smriti to give her opening remarks.
So I kind of completely agree when you say that schools have not changed, and I can say I've been out of school for 20 years and most of the schools are still the same. In fact, what I want to start with is this thought about the status of teachers reflect the socio-cultural ethos of a society. And no nation can rise above the level of its teachers. So this is something that our National Policy of Education says in 1985. And this is something that I completely agree with. If a nation has to rise, then all nations are built in classrooms. If you don't have the teacher leaders, the people who are going to lead those classrooms at the right, being effective, you cannot really do nation building. So I just want to say that on one hand, we are talking about our teachers really being the nation builders, and on the other hand, we have that sad statistic of the CTET where we have almost like 93% on an average failing the test. And in some years it's 98% or 99%. So what I want to bring out is this stark reality from where teachers should be and where we are. And you know, I really feel that yes, teachers are failing, but they're not failing. Who's really failing is us. So we as a country, as a nation, are failing our teachers. So we are not doing the right job of preparing our teachers. And that's really, really needed. In fact, when you talked about looking outside our country and seeing some effective models, I tried doing that. Because when I've been into education for the last 12 years, and I realized that the only change can happen when we work with teachers. And in fact, myself being a teacher, I thought I could change my classroom when I worked with myself and I reflected on my own schooling, my own practice when I was teaching. So it can only happen when we actually think about the right practice. And probably right now what's happening, the B.Ed classroom or the teacher ed programs are reflective of our own schooling. So what's happening in a normal school, which is a lot of rote, one final examination that you're preparing for, and that's what a teacher ed program is also all about. So I spent a year in the US trying to see effective teacher education models. So I studied a lot of teacher ed models, including Harvard's, Stanford's, Boston Teacher Residency, so to name a few. And what was really common in all of them, so I'll talk about three things that kind of stood out in all these models and where at least that country was headed, and where you talked about other countries where they're also heading towards. So a blend of theory and practice, which does not really happen in our country. So we have a B.Ed and the B.Ed just, there's a lot of theory and just probably a month of practice teaching, which doesn't really have enough mentoring or hand-holding. So what I saw there was a lot of hand-holding and intensive mentoring. So a process where teachers are inside the classroom, they reflect on their practice, they observe the practice, there's a gradual release of responsibility taking place, and there's a mentor right there to help them debrief their practice and reflect on it. Another thing that I saw was that in the classrooms, in the teacher education, in the teacher colleges, it's not just the academicians who are teaching. It's a blend of academicians and practitioners. So you can't have teachers being lectured at. So what we really want to do is prepare teachers to be effective in the classroom. So we have to demonstrate that in the teacher education programs. We have to have a demonstrative pedagogy. We have to do that work with our teachers if our teachers have to do that work with our students. If we want our students to be autonomous thinkers, to be really empowered, we have to make our teachers empowered. We have to give them the room to take decisions. We have to give them that autonomy. We have to help them reflect on what they are doing. So we have to create that room, that space for teachers to really grow and to understand themselves first and teaching and learning. And the third thing that I found in these programs, so I was talking about a blend of teaching and a blend of theory and practice. Second was intensive mentoring, and then academicians and practitioners. So these are the people who are really mentoring teachers. So I guess as the conversation proceeds, we're going to talk more about it. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Smriti. Now I invite Mrs. Rita Kaul to give her opening remarks.
Good afternoon, friends. Since yesterday we've been hearing so much about 21st century, the challenges, teacher, classroom, curriculum. I would just take you a little on the other track. I have just two stories to tell you. And I think in this room, all of us are that intelligent to understand who a teacher should be and how would we become that kind of a teacher. When we hear about 21st century and we say that the challenges are there, when I was in school, I remember 1968. I was in grade 3 and a story session going on. That was a time when translation method was adopted by teachers. They would tell you a story and translate. So here was Ms. Guha telling us the story, and she said, the hunter had to go to the jungle to hunt. So he rode a horse and he reached the jungle and he got down and he climbed a tree. So there was little Rita sitting in the class who raised her hand and said, "Ma'am, why do you ride a horse and why do you climb a tree?" Because she translated it, "Ghode pe chadha aur ped pe chadha." So Ms. Duha, I was looking at the teacher and Ms. Duha said, "It is like that, Rita, just sit down. You have to ride a horse and you have to climb a tree." And then after her period, there was a break in between, as we have in schools. And here comes my principal's peon saying, "Ms. Bose has asked you to come to her room." I was shaking. I didn't know what I had done and how come in just these 30-40 minutes, ma'am has come to know about me disturbing the class. So I went to Ms. Bose's room. She shut the door. Karak principal, I thought, pata nahi ab kya hone wala hai. So she shut the door, she took out her shoes and she became a horse. And she said, "Rita, just ride my back." I was taken aback, class 3 child. Third time when she said, "I had to," right, I did that. She said, "Do it again, do it again, do it again," 3-4 times. And then she pulled her chair and she said, "Climb my chair." I did it 2-3 times again. She sat down and she says, "Come here, baby, I'll tell you what is the difference." I didn't know that she wasn't around when I had asked her and she had quietly come and sat down in the class. She said, "Rita, when your feet go like this, you are riding. When it goes like this, you are climbing." Can I forget that concept? Can I forget that principle? Can I forget that teacher in 1968? And we talk about challenges in 21st century. Whenever we asked in school in a morning assembly or interacting in a classroom, who would like to be what? Everybody says an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a model, a fashion designer. Latest is ramp walking and everything, journalism. They talk about everything. They'll never want to be a teacher. But I decided to be a teacher then. I was a teacher, I am a teacher, and I'll die a teacher. Concepts. They were to be in our Gurukul. Go back. You don't have to actually look at other countries. Go to Gurukul. Multitaskers, holistic child, the kind of education the teachers have to have. That was a challenge I thought my teacher had in 1968. Come to 1986. Now I'm a teacher. I have a student. I'm taking her sessions. This girl is brilliant. She's very intelligent, but she's lazy. And I'm taking one-to-one session of her. Rest of the classes is totally integral. I'm teaching her math, science, everything. But for speech therapy, I take her to a separate corner because she has a speech room and she's hyperactive. So just a calendar there on the wall, and I am developing her communication tape. Now the task is every week I have to have 5 symbols so that she learns and she can communicate combining those symbols. 20 symbols or 25 she had to do in a month. Sonia was very lazy. She would not do more than 10 or 15. So the session began in April. April and May, she didn't do even 10. July session started, July, August, September, she didn't even do 15. So just before we broke for Puja and Diwali break, I said, "Sonia, I am not going to assess you for this." And the challenge is, and she was very curious to ask me, what should she do to be a good girl in my eyes? So I said, "Sonia, the day you fool me through using your communication table, I will think that you have achieved. I'll not give you any grade or mark, but you'll be the best child." So there was a vacation and we went off. After Diwali, she brought a mithai ka dabba. So I said, "Thank you." So this Diwali mithai, everybody gets. So we distributed it and she nodded her head. And every time her hand went on the communication table telling me about a baby. Now you know how the parents of a special child, they look upon, they should have a normal baby, and I was so thrilled. I said, you got, and she kept showing me baby boy. I said, I'm so thrilled that you got a baby brother. That ecosystem where there's a lot of collaboration, a community of educators coming together and learning together. I think that's really missing in this country. So we don't really have that space where people can, and this is nice that we're talking here, but usually there are not too many forums where people can come together, share their experiences, teachers can come together, create that space of learning, which doesn't really happen often.
It's interesting, Nuga, that how she mentioned that it should not be training for the purpose of training, it should be a learning community. School should be as a learning community. You might want to add that.
Yes, because I also agree with the ma'am that it's not that Educom's program we have come, but that's what I'm saying. But 6 years ago when I took the Educom smart boards, changing from blackboard to smart board itself, electronic boards itself was a paradigm shift for teachers. It boosted their self-pride and competence. Also, when I took the boards, I told the teachers, look, I have taken these smart boards to make you smart teachers. And that really worked wonders. Over the years, we have used Educom facilities, I think, to the maximum possible extent. Teachers are not only using these resources, they have uploaded their resources. We have reduced the use of paper in school by communicating through Educom online. Children are sending their projects online and presenting them in the classrooms. And it has kind of become, the board has given the teachers a freedom. They are even showing movies on Educom in free periods. So everybody is enjoying the whole program. And when you think about my Hindi teachers and activity teachers, they also don't write anything by hand anymore. So there is no handwritten work in school because use of Educom has reinforced the use of computers. So every piece of work in my school is now typed, and they have really started enjoying this, and it was really good. Thank you.
So I think we talked about recruitment, pre-service training, in-service training, role of technology. I think now as we're closing the session, I want each one of you to make a small 30-second to a 1-minute remark that if it's what the one thing teacher training that you think it's missing in our government schools and private schools.
Continuous training should happen, continuous learning, continuous training, and at no point should a teacher feel, now come on, I've done it all. Because the next batch of students she gets might be totally different. Because children are far, far ahead of us. So the teacher has to keep, keep pace with the children. If she has to remain, otherwise teachers just get left out.
So I think I'll in fact go big, one step before pre-service, which is preparing people to get into teaching, because that's not happening. Nobody wants to become a teacher. So that's the last option, or something that I've looked around everywhere else and I can't get into anything, and then I look into teaching, or as a kind of a half-time option, which is not a half-day's job. It is a full-day, 24/7 commitment, and we need to understand that. And as a country, I guess it's very important to get really people who are motivated and inspired to be in this profession. So as a country, we need to think about how we can get these people not into, say, IT or software. What's really needed is education. And not many people are getting into education. So I feel that's the most important job in front of us. And once they're in there, to build that pride and for them to be able to say that I am a teacher and I can make a difference. I touch lives and I can make a difference is really, really important, and to feel connected to the larger purpose of education, which is to touch lives and to touch children's lives.
You asked about the government teachers also. The government schools, we know, they're the most qualified teachers go to the government jobs. And irrespective of whether it's a government school or a private school, my request is, and amongst all of you, I know there are school owners sitting there. There are government people who are running government schools. It is important for the management, whether it's government managed or privately managed, to invest in teachers' development program. Without investing in that, it's a long-term benefit for all of us, because if we invest in them today, we are investing in human resource which will go in for generations after generations. Number two, my request is to principals. Please do not be after your teachers just to complete the syllabus. In fact, it's not even completing. We talk about finishing syllabus. There's a difference between finishing and completing your syllabus. Do not engage your teachers in daily chores. You have to engage them meaningfully. You have to throw challenges at them. At the end of the day, make the whole environment so creative and innovative that they are the ones who are satisfied. At the end of the day, they don't say that I did it for the principal or I did it for my students. They should have a satisfaction that yes, I did it for myself. The third thing is to the teachers. Try and think out of the box. Please, we are in 2015. It is not an 8 to 2 job, as Prati said. It's a full day job. Even when we are cooking, we are reading newspaper, our subconscious and unconscious is still thinking of a strategy. Each and every teacher in my school has 45 strategies in their mind, and they know, even if they go without a lesson plan, they know the entire child. 25 children in a class, they know each and every child would not go with the same strategy, so they implement different strategies on each child, and then they get the result. And the entire result is to see that we have a very, very happy school. I don't know whether they're going to land up in IIT or they're going to go to Harvard, but we have a happy school. That is something which I claim, because if your passion is there and the right kind of people are at the right place, believe me, impossible is possible. And one person in this room I know would appreciate, that is Mr. Senior Prakash. What I have to say now is, sir, आप समझेंगे मैं क्या कहना चाहती हूँ. कौन कहता है कि आकाश में छेद नहीं हो सकता? कौन कहता है कि आकाश में छेद नहीं हो सकता? एक पत्थर तबीयत से तो उछालो यारो.
Yeah, everybody has said everything. I'll take my only 30 seconds to say that I feel the basic point of teacher's training will remain the same in any century. The teacher needs to love the children, and if it is there, then all other things will fall in line. Thank you.
I think I need not summarize, because I think my panel has beautifully summarized it. Thanks a lot to all of you, and thanks a lot to all of you listening. Thank you.